بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Before we discuss the ayat for today's session, inshallah, just a sunnah practice which we can bring into our lives. It's very important that we learn the sunnahs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After witr salah, it's sunnah to read Subhan al-Malik al-Quddus. After the witr salah, 3 times a person should recite Subhan al-Malik al-Quddus. And the hadith mentions then the 3rd time you stretch your voice a little. So you read Subhan al-Malik al-Quddus, Subhan al-Malik al-Quddus, and the 3rd time Subhan al-Malik al-Quddus. So it should be inshallah a practice of the sunnah. Inshallah we need to revive within ourselves. So inshallah if we haven't practiced upon this sunnah, inshallah this is a good opportunity for us to practice upon this sunnah. I remember my respected Ustaz Hasib Maulana Fazlur Rahman Sahib Damat Barakatuhum, who we studied the books of hadith by. He was very particular about practicing upon a sunnah. And on one occasion I saw him practice a sunnah which had never really crossed my mind. When we mount a transport, Subhanalladhi sakhkhara lana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. We read this, and many of us will probably be used to reading this when we sit in the car. But as I said, people who look for reasons to follow the sunnah look for occasions. And I saw once on an occasion I was with Hazrat Maulana Fazlur Rahman Sahib, who is going to be here, and inshallah may we benefit from him. I was with him, and he put his step into a lift, and he read Subhanalladhi sakhkhara lana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun, because a lift is also a mode of transport. So this is how particular they were, and they are our Kabirin, our Salaf, in following the Sunnah. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and bring his sunnahs into our lives, inshallah. The ayah, inshallah, which we will discuss and we'll tadabbur over, deep reflection upon this ayah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أفمن شرح الله صدره للإسلام فهو على نور من ربه فويل للقاسية قلوبهم من ذكر الله أولئك في ضلال مبين. Allah makes mention here that the one whose chest has been opened up for Islam and he is on light from his Rabb. Woe to those whose hearts are hard from the remembrance of Allah. They are in clear dalalat and on the wrong path. أَفَمَنْ شَرَحَ اللَّهُ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ, the person whose heart has been opened up for Islam. What does this mean? There's a very similar ayat in Surah Anam. فَمَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. The person who Allah wishes to give hidayah to, Allah Ta'ala opens up his heart for Islam. So the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala ajma'in inquired from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what does this mean? Opening up our hearts for Islam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replied, إِذَا دَخَلَ النُّورَ الْقَلْبَ انفصح وانشرح. He said, when light enters the chest, it expands and it opens. Which means actually is that the person who Allah Ta'ala wishes to guide and Allah Ta'ala opens up his heart for Islam means he becomes, the advice which is given to him, the guidance which is given to him, he becomes receptive of this guidance. When the talks of deen are taking place, he takes in what is being said. It's not just cosmetic listening. Cosmetic listening means where you're just sitting there, you listen, you're not there, you are there. But what we understand from this is that those believers become active listeners. They listen, they accept the guidance, and they make amal on it. Many a time we'll be sitting in Dini gatherings, we'll listen to something, but we are listening, we understand, but the moment we've left, There's no practice. A very easy example of this is, if a person visits a perfume shop, there are three ways of a person entering a perfume shop. A person enters a perfume shop, he doesn't buy anything. For the moments he's inside the shop, he benefits from the fragrance that surrounds him. But he hasn't bought any fragrance, he hasn't bought any itr, no perfume, he hasn't applied anything on himself. The moment he leaves the shop, all the fragrance is gone. So sometimes, because of our weakness of Iman, we may be inside the Masjid, we may be in a dini gathering, in a spiritual gathering, but because our hearts haven't opened up yet, and Allah Azza wa Jal hasn't opened our hearts. So the moment we leave the Masjid, we leave the gathering, everything is lost. The second is a person who's in the perfume shop. He applies some of the perfume onto his clothes, but doesn't buy anything. He leaves. He benefits from the fragrance for a short period of time. But because he hasn't got any more with him, once those clothes are taken off, once that gathering has left, once that buzz has left him, after a few days, he's back to normal again. And the third is a person that goes to the perfume shop, he applies some and he buys some with him for himself. When he feels that the perfume is now losing its scent, he applies some more. Similarly is a person whose heart has been opened up. The advice that is given to him, he becomes receptive of this advice. He makes amal on it. So the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala asked, Ya Rasulullah, وَمَا أَلَامَةُ ذَلِكَ? What is the sign that Allah Azza wa Jal has opened up our hearts for Islam? What's the sign? So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replied, التجافي عن دار الغرور والإنابة إلى دار الخلود والاستعداد للموت قبل النزول أو قبل النزول. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave three signs for which a person can understand whether his heart has been opened up for Islam or not. The first one he said, التجافي عن دار الغرور, that he detaches himself, he distances himself from the Darul Ghurur, the world of deception. In other words, he's less concerned about this worldly life. Number two, وَالْإِنَابَ إِلَى دَارِ الْخُلُودِ, and is more inclined towards the Akhirah. They're the first two signs. He's more concerned about the Akhirah, not so concerned about the dunya. This in no way means that he cuts himself totally off from dunya. Islam does not preach extreme isolation. La rahbaniyata fil Islam. There is no such thing as rahbaniyah. Rahbaniyah was something which was introduced and invented in the Christian faith, which Allah Azza wa Jalla has not prescribed upon them, which Allah mentioned himself. Rahbaniyatan tada'uha, something which they introduced themselves. Rahbaniyah is when you cut yourself totally from society, where you have no concern with the world at all. What we have instead of Rahbaniyah, we have i'tikaf. Rahbaniyah is a permanent cutting off from the dunya, whereas i'tikaf is a temporary retreat for spiritual growth. It's not permanent, because Islam teaches us balance. Our life needs to be balanced. Not so much so that we engage in our dunya that we forget the akhirah, and we are so much engaged in our dini duties that we forget our worldly duties as well. So as Muslims, as people with faith, we have to live our life in accordance, fulfill our dini duties, at the same time understand our worldly responsibilities as well. And both come hand in hand. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. Both. But if that dunya is overpowering the dini approach, then that is a concern. So each and every one of us needs to evaluate himself. I need to evaluate myself. Every one of us needs to evaluate. What's more important in my life? So Rasul said, التجافي إلى أندار الغرور والإنابة إلى دار الخلود والاستعداد للموت قبل النزول. And he prepares for death before death comes. He is always conscious of his death. In other words, it doesn't mean that he doesn't do anything of the dunya. He lives a responsible life. He understands his limits. So especially in today's society and the world we live in the social media, the mobile phones, we need to really evaluate ourselves. How much time am I spending on the mobile phones? How many hours have been spent? How many hours have I spent reading the Quran? We understand the Salaf would complete a whole Quran in the month of Ramadan. And we find that impossible. If we look at our screen time, maybe we're spending about 6 to 7 hours a day. 6 to 7 hours a day. One para roughly takes about 20 minutes to read. So in 1 hour you can read 3 paras. If we spend 6 hours on the mobile phone just scrolling through things which are irrelevant, we could have read almost 20 paras a day. I'm not saying we should be reading 20 paras everybody. It might be a challenge for everybody, but we must make a habit of at least, if we can spend so much time on our mobile phones, then we should be able to spend some time on a daily basis, reading 1 para on a daily basis, inshallah. And other times when we are moving around, read Qul Allahu Ahad 3 times. We get the reward of the whole Quran. One Sahabi would always read Qul Allahu Ahad. Muawiyah ibn Muawiyah al-Muzani, radiyallahu anhu. Whenever he went out and he would make imamah, he would read Qul Allahu Ahad. The Sahaba, when they returned to Medina, complained to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that this Sahabi only reads Surah Ikhlas, like we do as well. Yeah? So he says he only reads Qul Allahu Ahad. Always. Some say that he would add the Surah Ikhlas with the other surah he would read. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called him and asked him, why is it that you read Suratul Ikhlas, Qul Allahu Ahad, in all your salat? He said, oh Rasulullah, I love this surah. Because of the love of this surah. If we look in the deep meaning of this surah, it talks about the oneness of Allah and the greatness of Allah. He said, I love this surah. Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam came and informed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that informed this Sahabi that Allah loves him because he loves Suratul Ikhlas. Because of the love of Suratul Ikhlas in his heart, Allah Azza wa Jalla has mahabbah for him. So maybe we may be reading the surah as well, inshallah. We can change our intentions that we read Surah Qul Allahu Ahad because of the love of the surah. So al-istidlad al-maut qabla nuzuli. Always remembering death. Today we read innaka mayyit wa innakum mayyitun. That you are mayyit, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mayyit means somebody who is going to die. There are 2 words in Arabic, mayyit and maytul. أيا سائلي تفسير ميت وميت فدونك فسرت ما عنه تسأل فمن كان ذا روح فذاك ميت وما الميت من إلا من إلى القبر يحمل. He said, oh person who's asking me the difference between the word mayyit and mayt, let me inform you. Mayyit is a person who is going to die. We are all mayyits, even though we generally use the word mayyit for a person who passed away. And in the Arabic language that's also used. But in deep Arabic language, mayyit are those who are going to die. And a mayt is a person who has already passed away and is been taken to the Qabristan. So our life, my dear friends, what we understand from this ayah is that we must be focused. The second part of the ayah, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْقَاسِيَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ مِنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Woe to those whose hearts have been hardened from the remembrance of Allah. In other words, they're not receptive now. They feel uneasy inside the masjid. As soon as the Tarawih starts, after every 2 rakats, we look at our watch or the clock, how much time has passed. When will the Tarawih finish? So he says, Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْقَاسِيَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ مِنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Woe to those whose hearts have hardened from the remembrance of Allah. They don't feel comfortable remembering Allah Azza wa Jalla. We can spend hours on the phone, but yet struggle to make zikr of Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's a sign of the weakness of our iman. Malik ibn Dinar rahimahullah was a great tabi. He said, there's no greater punishment ما ضرب عبد بالعقوبة أعظم من قسوة قلب. He said that a person, there's no greater punishment that can be given to a person than Allah Azza wa Jal making his heart hard. In other words, not receptive. He feels uncomfortable about dini activities. He can spend hours outside talking, but yet fails to sit in the masjid and make dhikr. So this month of Ramadan has been given to us so that we connect to Allah. These are the last few, roughly about 10 days left, just more than 10 days. We need to take, inshallah, evaluate ourselves and make an intention, inshallah, after Ramadan I need to continue. We need to make some kind of effort on ourselves and also effort on the community as well. We see the masjid being full in the month of Ramadan. But then outside Ramadan, the masjid become empty again. We should fear, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْقَاسِيَةِ قُلُوبٌ مِّن ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Are we falling under this category where people's hearts are hardened? Allah has made them hard. Min dhikr, from the remembrance of Allah. We need to look at ourselves and inshallah make a concentrated effort in changing ourselves. There are mistakes within us. Very easily we point fingers at others. We need to look at the weaknesses within ourselves. We look at the weaknesses even within the ummah. You know, the ball is kicked around. Why is the ball kicked around? Because it's filled with air. If it was filled with stones and gravel, there anybody kick the ball. One of our ustads normally gives this example. He says, that is the state of the ummah today. We are empty from inside. Hence we are being kicked around from one side to the other. The moment we have the strength of spirituality, the weight of spirituality inside us, inshallah, Allah Ta'ala will take care of the ummah. But we need to take care of ourselves and be concerned of the ummah. I mentioned yesterday that, generally when the announcement is made for Jamaat, we say, for the bayan, that Allah has kept our success, the success of whole of mankind in deen. How can deen come into our lives? A great effort is needed. Effort is needed. Not going viral. For dunya, no effort is needed. Dunya will spread. You can put, like I said, mentioned yesterday, you can put the dessert on viral and everyone's buying. But deen requires effort. And that is the responsibility of each and every one of us. And this responsibility we must understand. In whatever form. Whether we take part in the gush, whether we take part when Jamaat comes, or in any other form, in our workplace, we talk to our colleagues, we remind them of Salah, we bring them to the Masjid, inshallah. And inshallah, through those small little efforts we make, our deen will be revived, inshallah. So I was saying sometimes we point fingers at others, the problem, we need to start pointing fingers at ourselves. And I'll just finish on what Ghalib, who was a Urdu poet, he said, and reflect upon this, inshallah. He said a couplet in Urdu, and I'll translate that. He said, "Oh Ghalib," he talks to himself, he goes, "Oh Ghalib, you spent your whole life wiping the mirror clean." He said, "Oh Ghalib, you spent your whole life wiping the mirror clean, only to realize at the end of your life that the dust was on your face." Only to realize that dust was on your face. May Allah Azza wa Jal let us understand the weaknesses within us. May Allah Azza wa Jal let us use these remaining days of Ramadan where we connect to Him, we change our lives, and inshallah prepare for the year after. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakumullah.